When people talk about pride in Jane Austen, they talk about Darcy. It's in the title. It's in his first scene. It's in almost every conversation about Pride and Prejudice. Darcy is the proud one. That's settled. Except Austen spent her final completed novel writing a different kind of proud man. A man whose pride is harder to see, harder to challenge, and arguably harder to overcome. Because Darcy's pride announces itself. Wentworth's hides. And hidden pride can survive for years after the obvious kind has already broken.
Well, now that you're ashore, Frederick, it's time you found somewhere and settled down yourself.
Yes. Have you no special requirements? No features that particularly recommend themselves to you in a woman?
Well, yes, I want a strong mind with sweetness of manner.
Darcy's pride is visible from the moment he enters the story. It comes attached to everything he represents: wealth, status, education, family, Pemberley itself. He moves through the world with the confidence of someone who has never had reason to question his place in it. When Elizabeth first encounters him, she sees exactly what everyone else sees: a man who values distinctions of rank too highly and people too little. And because Darcy's pride is visible, it can be challenged. Elizabeth challenges it directly. She tells him what his behavior has looked like from the outside. She forces him to confront the gap between the man he believes himself to be and the man other people actually experience. The remarkable thing is how quickly he responds. Not perfectly, not immediately, but within a matter of months, Darcy has begun examining himself, changing his conduct, and acting against his own pride. By the end of the novel, he's helping Lydia, assisting Wickham, and doing so quietly, without any guarantee that Elizabeth will ever love him in return. Darcy's pride was real, but it proved surprisingly movable.
I'd be a fool if I married her with a farthing less than £10,000. I've prepared a list for your perusal.
I have, however, one further condition to my side of the contract: that no word of my part in this affair be made public.
Now, look at Wentworth. 8 years before Persuasion begins, Anne Elliot broke off their engagement. She was persuaded that the match was imprudent. He was young, ambitious, and without fortune. The future was uncertain. Wentworth left. Over the next 8 years, he built everything for himself: a naval career, a reputation, a fortune. By the time he returns, he has become exactly the sort of man the Elliots would once have admired.
Here we are. Laconia, 38 guns, now out of commission. She was one of the best friends a man ever had, too.
I'm sure, sir, it was a lucky day for us when you were put captain into that ship. We shall never forget what you did.
And yet, something remains unresolved. What makes Wentworth fascinating is that he does not look proud in the way Darcy does. He is sociable, popular, easy in company. People enjoy being around him. But underneath that ease is a man who has never fully released the original injury. And that is where Austen's most interesting form of pride begins. At Uppercross, Wentworth speaks admiringly of firmness of character. He praises people who know their own minds, people who cannot easily be persuaded away from what they truly feel.
I have no intentions of ever being so easily persuaded myself. When my mind is made up, it is made up.
Well, I think you're fortunate to have the firmer character.
Anne is sitting in the room. The implication is difficult to miss. 8 years have passed, but the old wound is still shaping the way he thinks. This is not the pride that comes from social position. It's the pride that grows around an injury. The pride that says, I will never put myself in that position again. The pride that transforms disappointment into principle. When Louisa Musgrove declares that she would never be persuaded against her own feelings, Wentworth responds with clear approval. Whether he is attracted to Louisa herself or to what she represents is something readers still debate. But what is unmistakable is that Anne's decision 8 years earlier remains the standard against which everything else is being measured.
Stick always to your purpose, Louisa. Be firm. I shall like you more for it.
The wound is old. The pride built around it is not. Darcy's pride is directed outward. He misjudges other people, he categorizes them, he places too much importance on rank and too little on individual worth. Wentworth's pride works differently. It is directed inward. It becomes a way of protecting himself from a particular vulnerability. Darcy's pride tells him he is above certain people. Wentworth's pride tells him he must never again risk hearing the same rejection. That difference matters, because a mistaken view of the world can sometimes be corrected. A wound is harder. You can argue with a prejudice. You cannot argue someone out of hurt. You have to wait until they are willing to revisit it themselves. And Wentworth spends most of Persuasion avoiding exactly that.
How very good to see you again. So soon.
Yes.
This is where the comparison with Darcy becomes particularly interesting. After Elizabeth rejects him, Darcy does something extraordinary. He reflects. He changes. And eventually he returns without knowing what answer he will receive. Wentworth also changes over the course of his novel. But when the decisive moment arrives, he cannot act until he has reason to hope. He watches Anne. He observes her conduct. He sees her care for others. He hears her conversation with Captain Harville about constancy. And only then does he write the famous letter.
We don't forget men as soon as you forget us. We can't help ourselves. We live at home, quiet and confined. We have so much time to let our feelings prey on us. No, your feelings aren't as strong as ours.
I can listen no longer in silence. It is one of the most romantic lines Austen ever wrote. But it is also the moment when 8 years of pride finally begin to give way. Not because Wentworth suddenly becomes courageous. He was always courageous. He faced storms, battles, and the dangers of naval life. What he finally becomes willing to face is uncertainty. And that is precisely the thing his pride has protected him from since Anne said no.
I can listen no longer in silence. I must speak to you by such means as are within my reach.
This is why I think Wentworth may be Austen's proudest hero. Not because he is more arrogant than Darcy. He isn't. Not because he thinks more highly of himself. He doesn't. But because his pride is harder to identify. It disguises itself as dignity, as restraint, as self-respect, as moving on. Yet underneath all of those things sits a man who has carried the same injury for nearly a decade and has never entirely stopped organizing his emotional life around it. Darcy's pride could be seen. Wentworth's could hide. And hidden pride often lasts longer. Darcy's pride lives in the title. Wentworth's lives between the lines. One man had to learn that he was wrong about other people. The other had to learn that being hurt once was not a reason to close the door forever. That's why Persuasion feels so different from Pride and Prejudice. Darcy's story is about overcoming prejudice. Wentworth's is about overcoming pride that has become part of his identity. Tell me in the comments, whose pride do you think was harder to overcome? Darcy's visible pride or Wentworth's hidden pride? And do you think Wentworth ever completely let go of the original wound? Or did he simply decide Anne was worth risking it for? I'm Sana. This is Monica's Pie. The story's never just the story.